Good evening and welcome to the Psychic Coffee Shop. I'm Aeson Knight and I'm sitting down tonight with Gail and Gregory Hoag, who has a new book out called Sacred Geometry. Now, before you guys go running, we are not talking about high school geometry. We're not going to give a trigger warning. We're not going to be doing algebra tonight. Promise you. So, Gail, how did you two start writing this? Because you guys have more than 40 years in the business.
Yeah. It's been a long journey, and you know, it really started out a long time ago when actually it goes back to a time when I was just a few years old and just had this epiphany that I was here. My life was to make a difference, to do something valuable here on this planet. Didn't know what it was, of course, but you know, it was an inspirational moment. And then in my very early 20s, late teens, early 20s, I had a near-death experience. And at that point, when I saw myself going down that tunnel, I realized I was leaving this life, leaving this body. And it was really interesting because I recognized that I could do that. And it was perfectly fine. I was so peaceful. However, I got this sense that I wasn't ready yet. There was more here to do. Mm-hmm. So I pulled myself back into my body with all my energy and then started going through my healing experience. And, you know, it showed me that life is very different than what I thought. And there was certainly no reason to fear death. And there was a higher intelligence that it was my time to get in touch with that. So I really started to explore my intuition, my higher knowing from that time on. And,
interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, the way that I actually did it to begin with was through art. And then, you know, as an artist, I wanted to understand universe. And one of the ways that I did that was I got intrigued by the work of Buckminster Fuller. And do you know who Fuller is?
I do.
Yeah, an amazing genius, and the one who created the geodesic dome and talked about all these different tetrahedrons and the geometries of the universe. And it spoke to me. It just spoke to me.
Right.
So the interesting part of my journey that got me into where I am now is that in the mid 80s, Fuller passed on, and I was meditating, doing channeling and connecting in with higher intelligence. And I just put it out and said, hey, you know, I know that consciousness is there. I'd love to stay in touch with it. I'd love to keep learning. If that's okay with you, I'd love to be the receiver. So after a while, what happened was I sat in meditation and I saw Fuller coming to me, giving me these geometry lessons. And it got to a point where I said, whoa, I don't have a background in science and math and all that stuff. Right. And if you want to continue with this, I need somebody that we can do something with this. And, you know, it was probably within just a couple weeks that I ran into Gregory. And here was this man. I was actually checking on my paintings in a place where I was using the space as a studio. And he had recently sold the house to this friend. And I was checking on my paintings. He was checking on his table. And he had a box of these different geometries with all these
Mhm.
tetrahedrons. And so I said,
Okay.
oh, you must know the work of Buckminster Fuller. And he said, no, I don't have any idea about that. And I said, well, you need to. So I invited him to come learn more through some of these sessions that I was having to bring in the consciousness of Buckminster
Uh-huh.
Fuller.
Interesting. Now, Gregory, what did you think when you ran into someone with this, and what were you doing with all these tetrahedrons?
Okay, well, that story started for me actually through the 70s. I was pursuing, after spending 4 years studying science in
Mhm.
um, in the 60s, I became somewhat open to other possibilities. And so through the 70s, I was living in different ashrams. I was working with different spiritual masters. And then
Mhm.
in 1980, I built a pyramid with a friend that, even though it was only 10 feet high, in today's dollars, it would be close to $250,000 to build it.
Wow.
And we had giant crystal balls, all types of things inside, and it
Mhm.
set off my Kundalini. And for those that don't know that term, what it is when the physicality of Earth, when your physical body starts reaching back toward the higher realms. And it was very intense, the energy. It took me years to balance it out. And
Right.
I literally had so much energy going through my body that there were holes being burned in both hands and in the middle of both feet as
Okay.
energy was passing through. But
Right.
as things calmed down after a couple years, I started seeing patterns of energy, the way
Okay.
energy works before it becomes physical matter. And I started communicating with higher dimensional or beings that weren't in the 3D physical dimension. And they started sharing with me ways of working with energy for raising consciousness. And I was building what I was seeing. I didn't know anything about sacred geometry. I just
Mhm.
I just was building the shapes I was seeing. And
Mhm.
I had that in the car when I ran into Gail. And so I pulled it out of the car and shared it with her. And that's the beginning of where we are now.
Yeah, and what's quite interesting is like when you study Reiki and stuff, they warn you do not activate that Kundalini, that should naturally happen. Although many masters have accidentally activated it through either accidents or, you know, on purpose. So that tends to open up a lot of things there for you to tap into. So it's quite interesting that you were flowing so much with that.
Well,
What is the go for it?
it wasn't so comfortable. I mean, and I was feeling like I was going to die from this energy. And I was working with healers and different people, and they were often telling me, we can't do anything. You've got to slow this down or you're going to
Mhm.
burn your body out.
Right.
So I had to really work on grounding, eating a lot of root vegetables, not doing anything that stimulated my energy
Right.
field.
Interesting. Um, Now, in the beginning of the book, in your voice, Gregory, you began talking about planting a eggplant seed and the codes that are built into that seed over the thousands of years.
Yeah, that was actually me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, let me explain something because this is, we wrote the book together, which is
Uh
an
huh.
unusual thing. You know, writing a book
Right.
is, it's a challenge for one
Mhm.
person And with two people, you really have to find how you're going to do it together. And so that was really a beautiful way things emerged. So there were certain things where I just went for it and got certain conversations going. And then Gregory would come in and he'd rework it, or, he'd add on to it and then bring it into his voice. So we go back and forth. However, Gregory's got the background of the math and science. And so that's really his work. However, what I would do is I would read it and go, are people really going to understand this the way it is? And so I would come back in with my voice and my editing to hopefully bring it into a way that was more digestible for people.
Right, because, in school we're taught geometry is formulas, formula after formula after formula, and that sometimes is a hard shoe for people. Like, it took me a few days to get around to even picking the book up because it says geometry, and I'm like, I don't want to go find my protractor again. And so how do people get into it easy?
Well, I think, Aeson, that's why we started it with the chapter about what is consciousness. And really what brought, I think, both of us to have this be our life's work was that what we're really truly interested in is the evolution of consciousness. And so we started with what was underlying our journey here. And so in seeing that everything in creation is a container for consciousness, and how does energy find form from the higher dimensions into this physical realm, and how do we work with it? So, and how are we related? We talk about how we're all one, but there's all these people on the planet running around feeling like they're so separate. And so we wanted to bring understanding back in. So it wasn't about geometry. It was really about the universal patterns. It was about how we go from pure energy, formless energy, into very amazing structured rhythms, patterns, cycles, and constructs that allows the energy to find a home and something that can keep replicating over and over and over again.
Right, and continuing that replicational process and changing within it. And that can be very hard to grasp on the spiritual level. And that's what I find interesting is, sacred geometry is spiritual meets mathematical science and collide and come into a nice rhythm there. So with getting into the consciousness and with the technologies, what are we seeing health-wise, prosperity-wise? Like, what have you guys seen in 40 years?
Well, you see, first of all, I'm going to backstep just a little bit. And sacred geometry isn't as just about number. And as Gail was alluding to, it also involves time, and it involves cycles, and it involves rhythms and frequencies. And that's sound and music, and everything is vibrating. And in the title of our book, we talk about sacred geometry as the universal language, because it's something that can be used and understood even if you were on the other side of the universe, communicating with beings that didn't speak any language we could understand, but we could understand how number and frequency and patterns work to create relationship. And so what we do is we look at the way, and the way we've been guided is we looked at the way that universe does these things. How does it build the sun and the moon and the earth in such a way that they have relationships to each other? And those are often numerical, but it isn't a
Right.
number you have to put into an equation. It's just simply looking at the diameter of the
Right.
moon, for example. It's
Mhm.
resonant with a certain geometry, and the Earth is resonant with other geometries. And then when you add the Earth and the moon together, they start to relate in a way where you see, oh, this is how the body is built. This is how
Mhm.
plants are built. This is the way our DNA is structured. And
Right.
so what starts happening is when we build geometries or we build certain pieces of jewelry that people can wear with these principles, that they
Mhm.
are resonant with these bigger archetypical aspects of creation. It's the way
Interesting.
creation does it. Then
Right.
we start moving into that same rhythm, into that same vibration. And so, what starts happening for people that are around these tools or wear the pendants that we make, etc., what happens is it opens them up to the bigger part of themselves. Often there are parts of our being because we're multi-dimensional beings. That means we exist on many different levels of reality. And as you know, there are people that can see the aura, colors around a human being,
Right.
and these are often referencing the emotional body of the person.
Mhm.
So the emotional body doesn't just exist inside our physical body. We feel it in our body, but it exists around the body as a field and as a
Right.
field of color. And what happens is human beings are getting into a lot of fearful and fear based emotions today. I mean, anger, sadness, guilt, these are all aspects of fear, and they surround the physical body almost like a shield that makes it difficult for the higher realms, for soul, for higher self to come in. And
Right.
so what we have found is that when some of these tools are on a body or near a body and people start resonating with that, they can connect more easily with their higher self in spite of what's going on emotionally.
Interesting. So it's almost like the jewelry in itself is able to raise the vibration by a magnetic flare.
Yes, Anne.
I like to think of it as a way for us to stay connected because
Mhm.
that vibration, that energy is what's naturally here for us. But
Right.
unfortunately, we're living in modern times where most people are being kind of like distracted from who they really are and from what
Mhm.
that energy is. You
Right.
know, when we're out in nature, we're in a beautiful place, like we live out in the country, and you hear
Mhm.
the sounds of frogs and the water and the birds and, all of this energy that helps keep us centered. However,
Mhm.
many people don't have that. And
Right.
so it gets to be more of a challenge for how do
Mhm.
we stay connected to really the higher part of who we are as human beings.
Right.
So our tools, our jewelry, what it does is it sets off that vibrational pattern that supports people in those divine connections so that you
Mhm.
can really be more of who you really are. It's not that these things are doing it for you, but
Mhm.
just like when you walk into a place that feels so supportive, so good, you breathe differently, you feel differently,
Right.
and you start accessing things in a different way. And so
Right.
that's really what we've been dedicated to doing is providing these tools to support
Mhm.
people and just being the most naturally um, the most naturally evolved that they
Right.
can be.
have you played around with materials that the jewelry is made out of?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the different materials are important if the way you combine different metals. If you ever use certain glues, block energy, certain ones are neutral to it. There are many aspects of materials because it goes back to atomic structure and geometry. It
Right.
goes back to molecular structure and
Right.
geometry.
Well, and all that kind of ties in together. It's like our computers. They all have two major components in them: gold and quartz, which I find interesting, especially when we're looking like your jewelry. A lot of them are gold based.
There's gold in there. We use silver, copper, titanium is also an important material that we like to use a lot. And then when you put those into particular shapes, and for example, one thing within the pendant is we have an oscillating crystal, and it vibrates at a very particular frequency, and its leads move over between two different geometries inside the pendant. We have over 35 antenna systems in there, and there's a coil of titanium that is wrapped around a fiber optic cable. And then we have a photon generator that's moving photons through that across the leads of this crystal, and it's generating a field. And so that's just one aspect of how shape combined with different materials. And then there are a number of organic materials in there to bring in that aspect of energy as well.
Interesting. Can we talk about some of the shapes that we have up? Like the I will call it the nuclear. This one, you can't even see where I'm pointing at. It's the circly one.
The circly one. Yeah, they're both circly. But I've got some slides if I could show you how some of those work together.
I'd love that.
All right, let's go to this. This is a slide that shows how different geometries, the platonic solids, you add up the number of degrees on their surface, and you get, for the top three geometries, you get the diameter of the sun. The second four gives us the diameter of the earth. The cube is the exact diameter of the moon. And then when you do things like take the diameter of the moon and add it to the diameter of the earth, you get 10,080 degrees, which is this geometry that you were pointing to, that we call the sphere of health. So this is related to this archetype of the way the moon and the earth dance together, plus something else that's interesting is that if we look at it, this particular image, it shows all these spirals that work with something called the phi ratio. Everything from the way sunflower seeds to the galaxy itself are different spiral galaxies. And the human being also follows the same proportions right down to our DNA. So this group of geometries, the phi ratio, it can be found in this geometry. This also shares those same aspects and dimensions within the way this plays out. So you see,
Okay.
this geometry starts to relate to the moon, the earth, and the way they dance together, and the way life is created, all the way from flowers to animals to human beings.
Okay.
And so,
And how does the magnetic effect, not magnetic, the magnetic north, magnetic vibration affect with that? You get the same combobulate. Does that affect things?
um, there are certain geometries, like
Hmm.
I think that one of the reasons we think of that possibility is because of the Great Pyramid at Giza that has a square base. And in
Hmm.
that case, because that's very definitely oriented north, south, east, west, when it is aligned, or a pyramid with a square base is aligned with magnetic north along one of the sides, it's going to increase the flow of energy collected by that form. And
Hmm.
and part of the reason is the way energy comes into geometries is through the faces. You know, they're
Right.
kind of like stretching out their face to catch the energy, like a sail would catch the wind, and then
Hmm.
the energy comes off the points. It leaks off the points of geometries, and you
Right.
can feel that more definitely. Now, when
Yes.
you go to something with mostly circles, it's going
Hmm.
to take it into something that is going to be perhaps what we might call a little softer, a little more feminine in its
Hmm.
relationship to the way geometries work, a little more integrated rather than the hard angles with points of
Hmm.
energy with the flow coming off.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Because I know that the magnetic field between the Earth and the Sun and the Earth and the Moon and in general, and then of course the wavelength there can grossly affect somebody, some a human, because we just went through this eclipse, and I'm sorry, my clients, I'm going to tell on you. Everybody was going bonkers because of that magnetical connection going on there.
Right. Well, at its core, it's important for us to remind ourselves that
Mhm.
we're all connected. So, what does that mean? So, when we're moving through this galaxy and we're being influenced by different energies from different galaxies and planets and whatever else, it affects us and it should affect us. If it
Mhm.
didn't, there would be something wrong with this whole way that life is created.
Right.
So what we've really been wanting to teach people is that when you understand how universe works and you're in
Mhm.
sync with that, you're aligned with it, your life starts to flow in a much better way because the
Right.
energy wants to move in that way. The energy really wants to support us. The truth is
Mhm.
that when the soul leaves the body's dead, right? And so
Right.
the more that we can be opened to that healthy natural flow of energy, the more we're able to use it in a way that's
Mhm.
life positive for our health, for our prosperity, to have
Mhm.
quality relationships, all kinds of things for us to be able to show up, not as just a little physical being that's struggling here on this planet, but
Right.
instead, we are multi-dimensional beings. And when we
Right.
reach into our intuition, our higher knowing, when we're able to access that those qualities of who we are, life only gets better
Right.
because we're expanding into who we are instead of triangul or strangulating it so that we're
Mhm.
trying to make ourselves fit into little boxes. We're not meant to fit into little boxes. We're very amazing creative beings, and we are influenced by all of these universal principles.
Very much so, and we're influenced by our environment, which ties into geometry because you can actually have geometry around you all the time. Literally, the aspects of where you put a picture in a room can change the flow of energy within the room, or where you can put the spear or that type of thing. So with your jewelry, does it come with like instructions on how to prep it or how it should be, or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have booklets of information on how to use it and work with it. And we have things online where we have meditations that people can do working with the pieces just to get used to how to ask questions, how to set up your intent and your focus and work with creating your life.
Right.
Because as we were, and as you were sharing just a little bit ago, there are many things in our reality that create distractions or blockages. Like in this image that I'm sharing with you now, you have the metaphor of soul being like the boat on the surface of the ocean, pumping oxygen down to you as the human being here on this planet. This is our lifeline of connection to soul, and soul constantly is feeding us the energy to be alive. And on the right are the images of electromagnetic pollution, which disturbs that flow. The negative emotions, we talked about how that blocks it by just forming a shield around the body. And stress does a similar thing with disconnecting us from what's natural. And science has even started recognizing that stress is the precursor to many different diseases, basically because we're disconnecting. And then the judgments and beliefs carry us away from understanding that we're bigger and more connected than we are. And of course, toxins are everywhere on the planet now. And this is also
Right.
diminishing our ability to connect and be the full human being that we're meant to be.
Right. And it gets into a lot of stressing, a lot of anxiety that really holds the soul back. That's why we see so much talk of meditation, so much talk of, you know, recreating, of also watching what's being thrown at you. What I mean by that is what you're taking in, as far as like information and that type of, the bombardment of news 24/7 and the bombardment of negative people.
And it's important not to take any of it too personally, which
Right.
is hard for a human being, but
Right.
that's what we're talking about. If we can expand to the bigger part of ourselves and look down, and I see this character, this
Hmm.
that's been dancing around for a number of years and will leave in another number of years, and I can watch him and say, oh, he used to act this way when someone said that. Now you can kind of take a step back and go, what's the big deal?
Right.
It's really starting to prioritize what's important in your life.
Right.
And especially, I think, as we get older, it starts becoming more and more evident that we don't have to go into the reactions we used to.
Yeah, it's important to think about how we're sort of programmed to move into automatic pilot. And part of that is, like when we have so much information that's being, blasted at us, the
Hmm.
way that we're set up is, we can only process so much and we can only respond in so many ways. However, automatic pilot is connecting us to what we've already been, what we've already done, It's the
Mhm.
past. It's the programming. It's not being here present in this moment. And so when we're feeling connected to the universe, we are in the moment. We are present. We're creative. We're able to flow with the true creative energies, not just having an isolated experience of having to draw back onto um, these programmed ways of being. So, for instance, in a relationship, when we're feeling connected and grounded, and we're feeling all the levels of who we are, things won't trigger us in the same way. We're able to be more in our heart. We're able to be more authentic with who we are and not be so compelled to draw back on the things that have not gone right in our lives. And so
Mhm.
I think that's really one of the keys to working with our tools is it helps us be present. It helps us be here now and stop. We don't have to be running into the next thing, but instead take a breath, recognize that we're a full human being, and we don't have to have these automatic relation or reactions. So,
Right.
that's a lot of what this is about. And when people wear like the pendant, for instance, we always tell them just simply, when you get up in the morning, put it between your hands, breathe, and just connect with what it is that you really want this day to be like. So it's
Right.
bringing consciousness. The more we bring consciousness to each moment, the more we're able to really show up in, that beautiful level of who we are.
Right. Now, you guys also have some courses out. Now, do y'all joint teach them, or is that one of y'all's pet projects, or how do y'all do that?
We don't have any separate projects.
Ah,
We've been
okay.
doing this for so long, and
Uh-huh.
it has been an amazing journey to um, live and work together 24/7 for many years,
Right.
and we do everything together. And writing the book was another step in
Right.
how do we, as human beings that have often separate ways of communicating and talking about stuff,
Hmm.
how do we do this together so that we don't constantly argue, and
Right.
which we would have if we tried to write the book maybe 10 or 15 years earlier. It's like it
Okay.
came at a time where I think we had evolved our relationship where we were able to
Mhm.
correct each other's work without going, oh, you can't touch that, it's mine. It's
Right.
like it was growth um,
Right.
aspect for me to write the book, and I learned a lot of things and got a lot of help from Gail in even
Hmm.
being able to write, which was a challenge for me until we worked on some issues that went back into my childhood, and Gail helped me. And after that, I was able to write much faster. Otherwise, she was going, we're not going to have a book if you take a day to write a paragraph. So,
Yep. We're gonna have a pamphlet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
now that would have been
Uh.
an idea. We should have done a lot of pamphlets.
Like little cartoon books.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, what's this universal secrets revealed? Simple steps to activating your core of love and wisdom course you guys have got.
Well, that was one of the programs that we did a couple years ago, and we archived it. It was a live program when we delivered it, and it was really talking about the basics of sacred geometry. Some of the things that are in this book, um,
Hmm.
just helping people to get on this journey. And as much as we do talk about things that are more mathematical and principles of the universe and all of that, but when it gets down to it, what's really important is, where do you fit into it? How's this going to make your life different? What are you going to do in the way that you show up that is going to show that this is really valuable for you? So, that was always at the base of everything that we've done. But, over all these years, honestly, when we first started doing this, like, close to 40 years ago, and we started out by having these geometries, and we could feel the energy of it. We recognized that when we sat in meditation underneath of some of these structures, the meditations took us into a much higher experience, much more quickly. And that's really valuable for people. And, we wanted to be able to help people understand, what is this doing? We needed to understand it better. And at the beginning, we didn't know what we were doing. I think with a lot of things, we get started and we were being given a lot of information, and Gregory was making all these things. It was like, wait a minute, how can we make this practical? How can we make it useful? What is this going to do for people? And and we, there's so many people that are struggling on this planet. And again, I believe that so much of it is because they're disconnected from their full self. And so it all comes down to, what are all the different ways, techniques, practices, whatever, so that we can live a healthier, more mindful, more creative, and more loving life. And these geometries set up a resonance that support us in that journey. And so a lot of the teaching is really about how this can make a difference, how it becomes a viable tool for you to use.
Exactly. Now, you have a wonderful offer for our listening audience. Why don't you tell them about that?
Great. Well, so this book, Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment, we just published it in January. And we are offering you the first chapter of the book for free. And if you go to iconnectall.com/chapter, and if you're not seeing this, it's the letter I, the word connect, the number 2, and then the word all, all.com/chapter. We're offering you the first chapter about what is consciousness. So it'll give you an idea of what this work is about, how we write, what we're thinking, see if it resonates with you. So we'd love you to check it out. And
yeah, it's an enjoyable book. It does make you think and look at patterns and look at frequencies, and it ties a lot. Like psychodrama takes everything and kind of goes, oh, well, this ties to this, that ties to this, and here, this is how you put a bow on it, which is very good. So do y'all have other projects you're running?
Other products that we make, you said?
Other books you're writing?
Oh, only, at the moment I'm thinking about what I can be writing next, and maybe we'll be sharing some of these sooner on YouTube and things like that. Because there are so many aspects of reality that when you look at it from sacred geometry, from the perspective that we have, as we've shared in the book, there are new ways of looking at light itself, which has a geometry, and the way that affects sound when you change, say, middle A to 432 hertz. There's a reason for that in the way it relates to the way energy works in the energy spectrum. And so there's a lot of different things that I think we want to really draw out of the book and put out more plainly so people can see how the pyramid at Giza was built certain ways for a reason. And something else, just getting back to the pendant and some of the geometries that I find interesting, is that it changes the energy that people put out as well. And you can see that in that, for example, one grandmother said, what I love about the pendant is that my grandchildren used to run away from me when I would come and visit, and now they crawl all over me. And I had a man who was working at a maximum security prison that said when he had the pendant on his body, the prisoners treated him much differently and much nicer than when he didn't have it. And we've had some of these geometries. We've been told by some lawyers they keep it in their conference room because when they do a deposition, people don't yell at each other as much anymore. And teachers are happier to have it in a classroom. Psychologists are really enjoying having certain geometries above people or around them so that when they are spinning or moving, there is just an acceptance to seeing themselves in the way the psychologist or the therapist is describing, and the client gets it in a new, deeper way. And so it's just fun to see how having the energy shift, even on your body, starts shifting the way people start reacting to you. Things in your life start showing up differently just because you feel good. And you're not feeling good for a particular reason. It's just when you're connected, it feels good. It's like we've been saying, sitting next to a stream or being in the sunshine with the birds singing and the wind blowing through the trees. You feel that natural order of life moving through you, even if you're in front of a computer and you have a lot of bricks and mortar around you.
Right. And that's so interesting. Now, you guys have worked together for 40 years.
Yeah.
As a tag team and lived together for 40 years, and nobody is underneath a rose bush or, planted in the backyard.
That's right.
I think that's amazing.
It really is. And you know something, I think as the years have gone on, we have a deeper love and appreciation for each other, and really learned how to show up for each other. It's a wonderful thing, what we can really be for each other in our relationships. Yeah, it's special.
Yeah. For all of us, it's so special, really. That opportunity exists.
Oh, what just happened? Whoops.
Okay.
We just lost the signal here.
Are you getting us?
Yes, we're getting you.
Okay.
Okay. Something weird's happened with our system. Can you see us now?
Okay. I can see you, Gail. I'm sure that he'll pop over in a minute.
There we go.
There you guys are. Thank you guys for sitting down and having coffee with me. And we'll see you again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And we just invite everyone to check it out and see if it enhances your life. What will it bring to you? Because that's really what's important. The evolution of consciousness and bringing more love on the planet.
Very much so. Have a great day, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you ready for an enchanting journey of self-discovery and empowerment? Dive into the mystical world of Wicca with our courses guided by Lord Aeson Knight. Unveil Wicca's secrets, explore fundamental principles, and delve into essential topics like deity relationships and the purpose of rituals. Aeson Knight, a third-degree high priest, shares his wisdom through life coaching lessons, guiding you towards a brighter future. Step into the inner circle of enlightenment. Enroll today to embark on a journey toward a more empowered you. Click the link to take your first step into the magical circle.
Ready to join the Psychic Coffee Shop Network? By becoming our patron, you'll unlock exclusive content from Aeson Knight, host of the Psychic Coffee Shop podcast and co-host of the Mountain Bears podcast, alongside the tech-savvy Techie Joe. Choose from subscription options ranging from Tall $1, Grande $5, to Venti $10 per month, supporting us in covering production costs and beyond. Depending on your subscription level, enjoy discounts on private readings, free access to classes and special events, behind-the-scenes extras, and the chance to participate in station meetings. Plus, you'll get early access to new content and the opportunity to shape future topics. We'll acknowledge your support in the credits of our videos. Don't wait. Brew some magic and join us today as a valued member. Link in the show description. Aeson Knight, your gateway to a transformed life. In a world where anyone can claim to be a life coach, Aeson stands out as a true professional with the skills and qualifications to guide you on your journey to success. So why invest in a personal life coach? Let's explore the game-changing benefits Aeson brings to the table. Ever find it hard to stay committed to change on your own? Aeson's expertise ensures you stay on track. With him as your coach, that internal drive kicks in, motivating you to keep your promises and achieve your goals. Making a change is tough, but Aeson makes it 1,000 times easier. He's your unwavering support, guiding you through challenges, pushing you beyond your limits, and believing in you even when you doubt yourself. Friends are great, but they may not always want to see you succeed. Aeson, on the other hand, is dedicated solely to your success. He removes negativity and limiting beliefs, giving you the tailored support you need. Forget endless hours deciphering advice from books and videos. Aeson is your shortcut to effective change. He saves you time and money by offering personalized attention, guiding you toward the tools and lessons that will truly work for you. Ready for a better tomorrow? Book your discovery call with Aeson Knight now. Take the first step toward the life you've always dreamed of. Aeson Knight, your partner in transformation. Start your journey today.
Good evening. Hello, darling.
Oh, hello. So,
How's your
yeah,
week
it's been pretty decent, at least so far. So hopefully
Yay.
I'll have more good days the rest of the week.
Yes, yes.
It's the
So
hope.
my interview was quite mathematical. I think you'll dive into it and chew it up like you do numerology.
Ooh. Well, I was backstage for some of it. And
Mhm.
yeah, very, very cool. Sacred
Yeah.
geometry. Even though I hate geometry, can I just point that out? Like, I hate geometry.
How are you in computers and hate geometry?
Trig and calc. I've had the breakdown conversation. It seems like people are only ever good at 2 out of 3.
Right.
It's either trig and calc, and then geometry, you hate it. Geometry and
Right.
calc, geometry and trig, it's 2 out of 3.
Right.
Geometry does nothing for me.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, trig and calc all day long. Geometry doesn't do a thing for me.
See, I can do geometry and calc. Trig drives me crazy.
Uh-huh. This is my theory about anyone you talk to. If you mention the 3, it's about the same response. There's always one. They're like, oh, I hate that. It's either calc, trig.
No, it's not I hate that. It's if I'm going to do that, you're going to have to get me stronger vodka.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's mostly what it comes down to, is that it's like your mind works for 2 out of the 3, but then that third one, your brain's just like, what? Like you just stare at the equations like, what the?
Right.
What are you trying to tell me? But anyway, but I know, totally kind of different concept.
Right.
It's
Hello,
geometry.
Miss Brenda. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Right. So, guys, it's time to switch into our favorite segment. Are you the asshole?
All right. Am I the asshole for continuing to be the Disneyland dad? Hello, everyone. I'm new to Reddit, so if I make mistakes here, sorry in advance. I'm divorced from my wife, June. We have one daughter together, Claire. We divorced on bad terms after I lost my job in the pandemic. Came home to an empty house and a note saying she needed someone who could, quote, give her the lifestyle she and Claire deserved. I didn't see Claire for a while after because of pandemic restriction on court proceedings. However, I was one of the lucky ones who came out of the pandemic better than I went in, and I'm now in fantastic financial shape. I have 50% custody of my daughter, and I'm trying to make up for lost time. This means since the world has opened up again, as long as Claire does well in school and helps with her chores, the weekend she's with me, we will do whatever she wants. Usually things like museums, movies, nearby national parks, festivals in our city, etc. Yesterday, I went to pick up my daughter from school, and June and her husband were waiting there and asked to speak to me. They said that the businesses he used to run took a massive hit during the pandemic and have never recovered, and that it's meant they've had to scale back their lifestyle significantly, including June getting a job. They then informed me that June was pregnant and they didn't want my spoiling Claire to affect the relationship between the two kids, as they couldn't do the same for their baby. I told them that I had no intention of changing how I raised Claire because she was a great kid and deserves to be rewarded for her good behavior. The conversation devolved from there, with June finally screaming at me that I was just some damn Disneyland dad using his money to get back at her. At the time, I didn't think I was wrong, but since talking to my girlfriend and some friends in child education, I'm wondering if I am the asshole for setting my daughter and her half sibling up for conflict.
No.
I understand the concept.
Right.
Here's the thing. I understand it. It can be really easy if one kid's getting everything and one kid is not, for there to develop animosity between the two kids. Which is unfortunately a consequence of, that's your father and this is your father and this is our financial situation, that's his financial situation. But then you start running into the wall of, but how do you explain that to a 2-year-old? A 3-year-old, 4-year-old, a 5-year-old? You know what I mean? Little kids don't necessarily get it. It's just she has more shit than I do. She gets to do
funner. But he's not. Yeah, she gets to do funner things. But this is where I'm at. Mm-hmm. He has made choices to field this child and for this child to experience things because he can.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it doesn't so far sound like I'm a little more curious what the rest of the list is. Because I'm thinking for them to be bringing this up, it's got to be a little bit more than museums, movies, national parks, and festivals.
Well, and I'm sure that it is. I'm sure that there's a lot of other funner things, a lot of fun things he gets to go do. A lot of places that he plans to take this child.
Yeah, which again, I think as a parent, you I struggle with the word right to do that, but this is trying to make that balance between one situation and another situation, knowing there's two kids in the middle. How would you even go about trying to rebalance that?
Right.
You know what I mean? I sort of have this moment of I don't not understand the concept that the wife's bringing up. I just don't know how that becomes your ex-husband's problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? this is kind of the unfortunate side of, being a modern family, of having, one child with one person and one child with another person, and that whole blended family moment is that, your older daughter is going to have more advantages.
Right.
Like, at least right now, given the current circumstances, given their current, thing.
Right.
I mean, the irony's not lost on me that she left him for the, quote, better, the lifestyle they deserve, only smacked in the face with, life said no.
Right.
Like, your daughter's going to get it, but you're not, and your next child very likely isn't going to either. Part two, I kind of wonder.
And this is why I dig further into this. He even offered to add her to his various memberships for the zoos and museums, so she could take Claire on her weekends. But she said I was missing the point. I think the point is,
How is he missing the? Again, unless she's talking about something like they're having two conversations.
Right.
Like, he thinks it's about, like, museums and movies and national parks and festivals.
Right.
And she's somewhere else with it. Like, it's the computer and the cell phone and the, you know, like, again, I don't know how you fix that.
No, this is about activities and being on the go and doing things with the daughter. She's not a sit at home. He's not a sit at home. Here's your TV babysitter, which I think is what's going on there. And the child's 7. The child will be 7 when the baby's born. That's a clear difference.
I think, good Lord, before the child really establishes there's a difference, I think the older child's going to damn near be out of the house.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
And then you can still make the excuse, well, your sister's older. Of course she gets to go, When you're older, like, lead her on, I guess. But, at least have hope for, in 14 years that you can catch up to a point that, well, you can go to the mall and you can have a car and you can go to college. I just don't, like... Here's my problem is, if June's having to go back to work and they're having to change their lifestyle, part of me has a moment of, it sounds like the reason for the divorce wasn't the reason for the divorce.
Right. And it
you know what I mean?
Like why aren't you this dude spends is $100 on a weekend.
Yeah, I mean, not to, I'm not trying to be rude necessarily, but it sounds like you left on sort of gold digger terms.
Right.
Your first husband. But then you're staying with the husband who's had a major financial shift.
Right.
Since you've been together. So that makes the argument that wasn't why you left.
Right.
There's a lot going on in this divorce. And it sounds like mom, the ex-wife, has issues, honestly communicating what her problem is.
Well, her problem is that she's now stuck in money. Without money. He has got more money. And he's spending it on his child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could understand if this was getting out of control spoiling.
Right.
You know what I mean? If this child spends 50% of their time eating cotton candy and, you know what I mean? Absolutely, by the time she gets home, total disaster area. There's no rules at dad's place, and there's no,
But there's rules, there's chores. The only reason she gets to go is if she brushes her dog, if she picks up her clothes, if she's good in school all week. These are rewards for this child. And the most he's spending is maybe $100 on a weekend with a 6-year-old. That's not that much.
I mean, or a 7-year-old, I think. But regardless, I mean, like museums,
Right.
movies,
Yeah.
national park. Like, you don't think in 7 years you're going to be able to take your child to a museum?
Yeah.
Like, how effed is your financial situation?
I'd say crappy.
I mean, like, that's like you went from like suburbs 5,000 square feet to double wide.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not trying to throw off. I'm just saying, like, that's not just a little, problem.
Right. Hold up. Catch up. Come on, let's go, video. You can do it. There you are.
All right. So that's not just a small change in circumstances. That would be like catastrophic.
Right.
But then again, I mean, that also sounds like there's also no future hope.
Right.
Like, again, your 1-month-old doesn't give a shit.
Right.
Your 2-year-old's not going to give a shit.
Right.
Your 5-year-old's going to start to notice.
Right.
Your 7-year-old's going to figure out something's up.
Right.
But hell, by the time this child's 14, Claire's going to be a 21-year-old.
Right.
Like, just doing the quick math. And it's usually like you start into the teen years, that's where you have a real problem. Because typically this is a problem with kids that are also close in age. So is it a possibility that ex-wife is just not understanding the age difference? I mean, I'm not trying to contradict people in child education here. I'm just going, well, yeah, if they were like 12 and 13, I'd see them being at each other's throats.
Right.
But 7 and 0?
Right.
Like, I don't think you're going to have a problem.
Right.
Like, yeah, unfortunately, your older sister's going to have a leg up. At least, and again, that's assuming dad's financial situation doesn't change and your mom and stepfather's financial situation doesn't change.
Right. Right. And, who knows? He probably already has our college fund fully funded. And I'm sure that's going to be a problem, too, because that's normally the second thing to get nicked when people start going through financial problems.
Well, but it also means that they only have to focus on one child instead of trying to equally provide for two. It's just going to be a known that, well, Claire's dad's the one that paid for her college. And, baby doe, your parents paid for yours. However that worked out, if that's scholarships and loans and whatever that turns into.
Right.
I think Disneyland Dad is probably a little too far.
Right.
Like, so I'm going to go with not the asshole because I don't even think you're the Disneyland Dad. I think that harkens to the idea that you're an uninvolved parent who just dangles, money and garbage in front of kids for love and affection and then, doesn't do anything to actually raise their kids.
Right.
No, I think you're doing a lot to raise your child. I just don't know if you even need to be concerned about this.
Right. And I would look at her and go, tough luck. I'll do with what my child wants on my time. You can do with what she wants on your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I can understand you've had a sudden change in finances and a lot of tough decisions to make. I know it's got to be disheartening. And perhaps the only job you can find is going to be on the weekends.
Right.
Like, I can understand if you're having to try to explain to your 7-year-old, mommy can't go to the museum. Mommy has to go to work.
Right.
That's a struggle. And And again, I would call that a really good incentive to change jobs as quick as you can.
Right. And to get back out there.
Yeah, find employment that better suits the lifestyle you want.
Right.
And your time with your child.
Right. All right. So the poll is up. Your options are yes, you're an asshole for taking your child to things. No, you're not an asshole for spending, and no, you're not an asshole for spending your money on your child. Or everyone's shitty here, or well, that's a deal pickle. We can't judge it either way. All right. So over to relationship advice.
All right. I, 23 female, found my boyfriend, 27 males, post about me. Do I confront him? I was scrolling through posts in what I thought was a forum for women when I somehow stumbled upon what I believe is my boyfriend's Reddit. The reason I think this is because there were posts that seemed to be about our personal lives, i.e., him asking for advice on how to address an issue that was bothering him, as well as a really weird post that completely twisted a conversation where I was concerned for his safety to saying that I expected him to put his safety at risk. This post made me start to question if he had another girlfriend. All of the post contains exaggerations, lies, such as I cried every day for a month when it happened twice. Essentially, all the comments on the post were saying how horrible I am and why would he want to be with me. I guess I'm now doing the same thing, although trying to be as vague as possible, but I just don't know what to do with this information. I'm more upset about the apparent villainization of me that he's written more than the fact that he is posting about our lives online. Part of me feels like I have violated his privacy by reading his post, but it is public on the internet and he knows I am on Reddit a lot. But if these posts are how he sees me, then I don't know why he's with me, because really it makes me sound like a pretty awful person. I'm unsure if I should confront him or just let it be as harmless venting on the internet. What?
Yeah.
Okay, here's my first thing. You think it might be your boyfriend's account.
Mm-hmm.
You're at least seeing similarities.
Right.
Without knowing the post, like, are we talking about all about one issue that you've had, or are we talking about like, no, it's a pretty good safe bet that like the odds of two people having this, and this really weirdo thing all happen
Mm-hmm. Right.
would be really overboard.
Right.
Like practically a DNA.
Right. More evidence.
Okay.
The posts were about things that had happened, such conversations we had had that were posted the same day or the day after these things occur. Part of the true content very much detailed for it to be someone else.
Okay, so you have proximity and detail.
Exactly.
So you're getting close to fingerprint.
Right.
Like if it ain't him, then
I want to meet who it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he got twin.
Uh-huh.
Fair enough. I think this is one of those moments. I don't even know if you confront him. I think you just have to go with your gut on it, of how you're feeling about what he has said. Because I don't think there's any going backwards on it.
Well, there isn't.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I would reply back. Comment back with advice. Just me.
So basically fire his hidden account with your own hidden account and try to correct the situation with advice.
Right.
I mean, if you like pina coladas, know what I mean? I guess there's an option there. It's like, how long till he figures out? Like until you slip in conversation in your responses and inadvertently, drop the ruse. For better or worse, whether it's like, oh honey, you're, and suddenly it's like, this is a little too personal for Reddit, and you seem to be stalking me. From forum to message, and saw you seem to post, like, yeah.
Something went wrong. Try again in a few seconds.
See, exactly. That's what I'm thinking happens. Like, she's with me. See, I think at this point, like, I don't know that you violated his privacy per se, because I think you're right that it's public on the internet and hi. I think it was definitely a mistake to publish enough detail. But I'm also wondering if this is like shitty first draft. Like, you never meant for her to read it.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And so you got it out the shittiest way possible.
Right.
Said it, got advice, took it in, reprocessed your emotions, and did better.
Right.
Like, and I think that would almost be the, like, okay, but since he started posting, is this better or worse?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, where are you at? Is he getting sound advice?
Right.
Even if, yeah, he makes you sound like, and I know there's going to be the people who are like, why are you with him? Like, But no, I mean, seriously, is he getting some sound advice from decent human beings? Right. That are like, okay, this is a situation you're in. That's one way to talk about it. Here's another version of that. Like, here's what it's like to have, or here's what it's like to think. Here's what it's like to be. Or, like, here's the other shoe. Like, like, here, let me explain it to you why she's doing this. Or why she said that. And then it's like, oh. Rethink it, rewrite the draft, and then do better in the relationship.
Right.
Do we have any comments that, like, illustrate, like, is it just growing resentment, or is it like, yeah, he sounds like an ass online about me, but our relationship's been going really well?
Well, she's not really commented a lot. Top responses respond to the post. Okay. I wouldn't say a word to him. Let him vent and check up on the profile every now and then to see if something more damning comes out. Then firsthand. Comment on the post that'd be funny. Comment on and ask him why he's with his awful girlfriend.
Well, then you have to kind of hope that he engages more than she has.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, because I think it's one of those bells you just can't unring. Like, she's not going to stop looking.
Right.
Which ultimately, because here's where I'm at. Like, are the 20-somethings okay? Is kind of where I'm at, because functionally I'm not really seeing where they have all the same supports that, like, we grew up with.
Right.
Because, like, I have it sounds like he's turning to Reddit for things you would normally say to your best friend.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you would call up and be like, my son of a bitch of a husband, you will not believe what this motherfucker did. You know what I mean? Like, he's doing that. Which with your best friend is like, okay, what did he do this time?
Right.
Okay, here's how we work around that. And then, the best friend just, all right, you drama queen. Like, calm your ass down.
Right. Or, you post on Facebook about him and it's like, yeah, whatever. Then you make it a thing like that better be a fucking Facebook post.
Oh, what they're fun.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
And that's where you take this. Or you go, and again, you guys will notice, I comment a lot about what he says.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know if she's going to be able to think about it perhaps in terms of, this is a shitty first draft. This is getting it out. What you think, what you feel, how you feel it, no matter how shitty it sounds. And then go, okay, stand back from that, look at it and go, that was unfair.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, again, if you're talking to your best friend knows how to moderate through your bullshit and be like, but is that really?
Right.
Like, I know this person. I've had dinner with this person. I know. Because I've been there for those conversations from like friends before. Right. You just do.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, anger, you say whatever. Right. Or annoyance or aggravation, whatever the feeling is. Sometimes it comes out the first time real shit.
Right.
Like, she's a stupid bitch and blah, 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 blah. And then you talk it out and it's like, okay, she had a point. Right. All right, I get it now.
Right.
Like, it didn't hit right, but I get it now. Said a different way makes more sense.
Mm-hmm. And, but no, it's just like, one, don't take it so seriously. Two, I'd comment back in there with advice. Like, well, I would actually probably apologize for that bullshit you just said. Give advice.
You'd probably respond with something like, you need to apologize for what you just said on Reddit to me in the living room.
Yes.
So, yeah. That's I mean,
and I think people get really confused when we both post.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was, but it was a post that you done about planning your schedules or something in poly, and like they got lost. I commented back with details and following up because he doesn't follow up well. And so,
I got busy. I know which post it was. It was the one I was trying to figure out, like, yeah, our house guest. The last one, the most recent one. Because I was like, I kind of feel like we've given a lot of grace here and a lot of room, and this is going downhill quick.
Right.
It's like we were happy to help, but this is starting to feel a little abusive. Like, it's not going well. We're trying to set boundaries. We're trying to establish, like, okay, these are responsibilities of people who live here. And that's going over like a ton of bricks.
Right.
And it's devolving quickly. Thankfully, that was a self-correcting situation.
It was a lovely self-correcting situation. A little bit of mopping took care of it all.
Yeah, a little road opener in that mop water by the gallon. Yeah. No, I get it. I'm just saying. But no, because I was hitting, like, you were hitting your limit with it. I was hitting my limit with it.
Right.
And I was willing to I don't know how to say it. Allow for a few things there. Like, okay, I understand this is not easy for them. Like, this has been a very confusing situation they're in. They've been misled a lot. They were told one thing and then someone did something else. So I understand they thought this was going to be very temporary, like a week, like we were originally told. And then a couple of weeks turned into like it was going to be what, 7-8 months?
Yeah.
What we were looking at, and it was like, oh, sweet Mary, Mother of God, I don't know how we're going to do this. Like, that was the point when I like started to have a breakdown of like, I can live the way we've been living for like another week or two. But the light at the end of this tunnel is very dim at like multiple months. And then thankfully the situation changed itself. They found someone to go be with, and they got all excited, and they were grown adults, so they took off and did what they wanted to. And for whatever, I don't know how that turned out. I don't care. Because that's basically where I got to with it.
Right.
Like,
but and we were looking for solutions because I don't know everything. And
well,
it's like
we were hitting that moment of you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Yes. Like, don't care where you go. Like, but we've hit our limit. Like, we're done. Like, we can't do this.
And it's because like we live a very structured life. We have.
Well, yeah, and there was a lot of misunderstandings about that, of like trying to communicate boundaries. And granted, even in that last couple of weeks, we found out a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't know. That suddenly, I will say, in their defense, totally in their defense, we found out a bunch of things we didn't know that made some of the behaviors, at least, make a lot more sense. And it's like, see, if we'd known that part, then I think we could have processed some of these things differently and been like, oh, yeah, that's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Yep, I get it now. Because we thought it was one situation. It turned out there was a whole backstory. And it was like, oh, holy crap.
Yep.
Like, nope, didn't know that part. If I'd known that part, would have behaved differently.
And would have planned differently.
Yeah, would have had different expectations, would have had different, like, yep.
Yeah.
So sorry to dangle the carrot of juicy drama, but I'm not. I don't think this is a situation someone needs to be put on blast for.
Right.
Like, ultimately, they weren't a horrible person.
Yes.
I don't feel like the world needs to be warned about their existence. I think they had issues and probably needed a lot more help.
Yeah.
Just the kind you get from a professional, not the kind you stash someone at someone's house.
Right.
And expect them to figure out and then correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, with all that, I would, comment back to the boyfriend and give him advice, because apparently he's looking for advice because he ain't listening to you. So maybe, create another account and go, well, maybe you ought to look at it this way, or maybe you ought to see it this way. Not judgmental. Go in there as friend, which is what you should be if you're in a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Yeah. Try to get to a root understanding of why he's saying what he's saying, the way he's saying it. Right. I think that's a fair approach. I think if you're less confrontational, if you don't want to interact directly, then I think you really have to try to at least process it from shitty first draft. And if you're not familiar, Brene Brown does a wonderful explanation of those words, and they're very useful. Is, you know, the story that I'm telling myself right now is
Right.
And then you challenge it. Is this true? Is that valid? Is this fair?
Right.
And so sometimes you just have to get the shitty first draft out and then stand back and go, is that really how I feel?
Yeah.
And I think that is a Reddit problem, or any posting site really, is that sometimes all we see is the shitty first draft.
Right.
And you don't get the nuance or the detail or the understanding or even the other side. Unless it comes in the form of people who comment,
right,
that have been there, done that, know the other side of this. Let me tell you what it's like.
Right.
So, I wish you luck.
All right. So the poll is ended about if you are a Disney dad. And the answer is you're a dill pickle.
Ooh, don't know what to do here.
Yes.
I think that's fair. I think it's definitely a confusing situation.
Right.
So I wish you guys all the luck in the world. It sounds like y'all really need to sit down and learn how to talk.
Right.
Because y'all are entrenching on I'm right, no, you're wrong. And I don't see this going well.
Right.
So you got to get over that. You can't raise a kid in a battlefield.
No. Especially one that sounds like a great kid.
Yeah. Like, you can raise a child in a battlefield, but let me tell you right now, and a lot of experts agree, it doesn't turn out good.
Right.
Like, don't raise kids in battlefields. It's a bad idea.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We will be back. I'll be back Thursday. Joe will be back Friday with me from Mountain Bears, where we talk about all things LGBT related in the mountains of West Virginia.
Yes.
Yes. So with that,
all right. So, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, Tracy Van, Caitlin Bell, and Devin. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
Yes. Good night, y'all.
Good night.